Hi, I'm Jason, clarinetist with Ensemble Offspring, and today I'm here to give you some tips writing for the bass clarinet. Really is a wonderful instrument, one that I first heard when I listened to the jazz bass clarinet player Eric Dolphy playing God Bless This Child. Most people seem to fall in love with the sound of the bass clarinet when they hear it. It's the incredible 4.5 octave range and the incredible warmth of tone, particularly in that lower register. Do check out my video on writing for the clarinet, the B-flat clarinet, because some things I talk about will also apply to the bass clarinet. But I think it's important to remember it really is another instrument, and there are some peculiarities that, although it's in the same family as a clarinet, some things don't apply to both. So let's get straight into it. Use the treble clef when you're writing for bass clarinet. It's a transposing instrument and everything will sound a major ninth lower. So my middle C in the treble clef is going to sound a B flat, a major ninth lower. So everything will sound an octave lower than the normal B flat clarinet. So I have 4.5 octaves on the clarinet. Most clarinets, professional clarinets will go down to a low C. That's C an octave below middle C. And again, I'm talking in clarinet transposed pitches. So I have the middle C, C on the third space, C above the stave, and then another C. Some of the student models only go down to a low E, just below middle C. So you might think, well, why do I want to write for the bass clarinet as opposed to the clarinet? And partly it might be to open up that beautiful lower register, the shallow register of the bass clarinet that the other clarinet doesn't have. But there also is a timbral difference too. If I play a bit of Stravinsky, 3 pieces on the B flat clarinet, and then the same thing on the bass clarinet, so I've played it an octave higher here on the bass clarinet so that the sound's in the same octave, but you can hear really that the bass clarinet has a much warmer and wider kind of sound. Some do often confuse it for the saxophone. So the 4 octaves of the registers of the bass clarinet, we have the shallow register, the lowest one, from an octave below middle C, all the way to B flat, third line of the treble clef. I'll play you a bit of Jerry Brophy's piece, Keys Cakewalk, that uses this register. It's also quite good for bass riffs down in that register. You might like to use the bass clarinet as a bass line. Then we have the clarion register. So from the B, the third line in the treble clef, to C above the stave. I could play you a bit of a Bach prelude. And then finally we have the Altissimo register, which goes from top C above the stave to about an octave and a half higher. So really up into the stratosphere. It's really easy to lose control up in that register. So I would suggest if you are interested in writing for this Altissimo register on the bass clarinet, you don't write anything too fast or frenetic. Yeah, it's just hard to sort of control there at times. I could play you a little bit of a piece that sort of uses this quite successfully. I'll play you a little melody. Yeah, take care, it's pretty easy to squeak up there. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the differences between the clarinet and bass clarinet quickly. The bass clarinet, as you can see, has keys, whereas the clarinet actually has mostly tone holes. So the mechanism is quite different on the bass clarinet. It does make some things, for example, glissandi that I showed you in the clarinet video, much harder to do on the bass clarinet. And also quarter tone fingerings, which were quite easy on the bass clarinet, the clarinet, are possible on the bass clarinet, but can be a little bit harder to manage. In fact, there are some that don't really exist. And finally, a bit of a tip, if you're thinking of switching, because of course you could be writing for clarinet and bass clarinet in your piece, make sure you give a couple of bars for me to change instruments. I have a stand for my bass clarinet, but I usually need two or three bars just to put down my B flat clarinet and pick up the bass clarinet, or vice versa.